السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Ready inshallah to start.
إن شاء الله. أرجو كيفكم.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين ورحمة الله للعالمين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. All the praise and all the glory is due to Allah, and I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and that Muhammad is last prophet and messenger. May the blessings and peace of Allah be upon our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his family, his companions, and those who follow his path up to the day of judgment. My dear respected brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh again. And we continue inshallah in session 3 about Hadith sciences. In this course, as I mentioned to you, that we provided an introduction about the meaning of Hadith and Sunnah and the authority of the Sunnah. Afterwards, we discussed the story of Hadith in 2 consecutive sessions. And in today's session, inshallah, we are talking about Hadith anthologies or Hadith collections. This is very important because many of us, we did not actually study the methodologies, and we did not understand the basic differences among the major compilations or collections of Hadith. So in today's session, we are discussing briefly the Hadith literature or the major collections which was used by the scholars. The reference of this lecture, it was based on the Muhammad Zubayr Siddiqui Hadith literature, pages 43 through 73, and also Hashim Kamali textbook 3145. I'm sure you will find actually the references on the Dropbox in a PDF format, so you can review that easily, inshallah. The development and the compilation of Hadith. I need to emphasize that here we are discussing not writing on the science of Hadith. Here we are talking about the Hadith literature itself. And by Hadith literature, we mean the compilation of ahadith, of reports. And by ahadith here, we do not restrict it to the statement of the Prophet ﷺ, but many of those references and many of those compilations included also statements of the Sahaba and the Tabi'een, and other sources were basically restricted to the statements of the Prophet ﷺ alone. Writing on Hadith or collecting Hadith took different methodologies, and it developed on the span of time. The beginning of the 2nd century gave the start or the beginning of compiling Hadith in written form. As I mentioned to you before, that by the beginning of the 2nd Islamic century, the Ummah started actually to officially document Hadith. And by official documentation, I mean that even at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, the Hadith was documented on a limited level, but the official documentation in large compilations started at the time of an Imam al-Zuhri, when he was delegated by the Umayyad caliphs to compile, especially Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, actually to compile the ahadith from the different territories and from different personalities, and to include them in a book, to compile them in a book format. The first type of, so the writings or the compilations of hadith took different types and methodologies. The first stage was actually the appearance of a sahifa, booklet. You remember we talked about this sahifa. Sahifa appeared at the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because some companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam took permission from him to include some ahadith for their own personal use, for revision, and later actually for disseminating them to others, but basically it was for a personal use. And we took some examples from this. So the Sahifa includes a number of reports which are all compiled by one Sahabi or one person. It is used for personal use, written at the time, mostly at the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have examples of those Sahifas. You remember, the most prominent one of them is the Sahifa as-Sadiqa, the trustworthy Sahifa or document of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. May Allah be pleased with him and his father. He gave it the title as-Sadiqa. Does anybody remember why he gave it as-Sadiqa? Does anybody know why he called it as-Sadiqa? The most trustworthy. Because he explained that himself. Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, he said that he received it directly from the mouth of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as-Sadiq, the most truthful person. So he called it as-Sadiq because he received it directly from the mouth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And when the people of Quraysh complained to him, why do you receive everything that the Prophet ﷺ says? He answered them back after listening to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ said to him, right from, for everything comes from, nothing comes from this mouth except the truth. So he called it a sadiqa because it is true in the sense that it was received from the Prophet ﷺ, and it is true because everything that the Prophet ﷺ brings up or says is definitely the truth. It's amazing to tell you that the Sahifa of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As contained around 1,000 hadith, 1,000 prophetic traditions. It's amazing also to tell you that this Sahifa has been inherited by his family members. His grandson Amr ibn Shu'aib, he inherited from Shu'aib. Shu'aib is the son of Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As. It's a well-known Sahifa and it's a well-known book which was discussed by the scholars of Usul whether to regard it as authentic or not, reliable or not. Why? Because they found out that Amr ibn al-As, he delivered it to Shu'aib. And Shu'aib, they are in doubt whether they actually delivered it to Shu'aib or to the son of Shu'aib, who is Amr ibn Shu'aib. But the massive majority of the scholars of Hadith confirm that the Sahifa of Abdullah ibn Amr, of Amr ibn Shu'aib an Abihi an Jaddihi, it is not interrupted. There is no interruption in the chain of Isnad, and it is truly traced back through Amr ibn Shu'aib, through his father, through his grandfather, Abdullah ibn Amr ibn al-As, all the way back to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And most of the ahadith included in this is of the category of Hasan Hadith. Hasan Hadith, which is, it is actually lower than the Sahih. It's lower than the Sahih. But it is reliable, and many of the legal rulings that we have in the in Islamic law were basically based on the Sahifa of Amr ibn Shu'aib and Abihi and Jaddi. The second example of Sahifa is the Sahifa of Hammam ibn Munabbih. Hammam ibn Munabbih, my brothers and sisters, was a student of the great companion Abu Hurairah. May Allah be pleased with him. Hammam ibn Munabbih is the teacher of whom? Of Abdul Razzaq ibn Hammam ibn Munabbih al-San'ani. And actually he lived in Sana'a in Yemen. Before the death of Abu Hurairah, he delegated Hammam ibn Munabbih to write down those ahadith for him. And Abu Hurairah had those ahadith. Those ahadith of the Sahifa of Abu Hurairah existed completely in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad through uninterrupted chains of narrators. And later, the Sahifa has been transmitted in manuscript form, and it was edited by Dr. Hamidullah. You heard about Hamidullah. Dr. Hamidullah is a very well-known scholar of Islam, and he was originally, I think, Indian. And Dr. Hamidullah, he wrote on every aspect. Have you heard about Dr. Hamidullah, my brothers and sisters? Dr. Hamidullah is a very great scholar, and you as a new generation might have not heard about him, but he was one of the people who benefited Islam so much. He translated the Quran into French, and Dr. Hamidullah was actually suggested to receive the prize of King Faisal, but he refused to take it. And he said, I did what I do basically for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so I don't like you to dilute my intention. So he belongs to, to the Muslim Indians, and he refused to take actually the citizenship of all European countries, and he maintained his original Muhammad Hamidullah. Yes, Muhammad Hamidullah. So Sheikh Hamidullah, he actually, it is important to remind you as a young generation, inshallah, brothers and sisters, of our great scholars, of modern and contemporary scholars, who made a lot of benefits for Islam and Muslims. So the Sahifa of Hammam ibn Munabbih was later edited by Dr. Hamidullah, who edited the manuscript and endorsed it to the public, and it was also edited by others. The second type of compilations or collections, which is used by the by scholars, is the word juz. You heard about juz. Juz is a part or a portion, and this is a collection of ahadith which is handed down on the authority of one single individual, be he or she a companion or a member of any succeeding generation. This juz is actually collected for basically maybe for personal or for a collective use. But what distinguishes juz from Sahifa is that the juz discusses actually one single topic. It focuses on only one single topic, like intentions, like the vision of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the hereafter, and so forth. So when the scholars used to discuss an issue, they just compile the ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam on that issue and included them in a juz or in a portion or in a section, and they used actually to publish it under the title juz. For example, in Allah's creation of people's actions by Imam al-Bukhari, juz in divine decree, juz on intentions, juz on zuhd, on renunciation of this worldly life. So the scholars choose any topic and they talk about it in the format of compiling all relevant hadiths. Then comes the word risala. The word risala is translated as epistle, and this is a collection of ahadith which deals with one particular topic, but it's not a normal topic. This is the scholars of hadith agreed on certain 8 topics which were actually identified by them and designated by them. And those 8 topics, if they all collected in one book, so we call this book as a jami'. We call it what? We call it as a jami', like Imam al-Bukhari's book. But if a book includes only just a chapter of those 8 chapters, or of those 8 parts or topics, so we call it what? We call it risala. Okay, what are those 8 topics? These are the primary topics which are discussed in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. Al-Iman, which is belief. Ahadith on laws and rulings, which are translated as Sunan. Number 3, riqaq, piety and asceticism or softening hearts. Number 4, manners. Number 5, Quranic commentary. By Quranic commentary, they mean collecting the ahadith which came in commenting on certain ayat of the Quran. Number 6, historical and biographical matters. Number 7, seditions and crises or fitan wal malahim. Number 8, the virtues and defects of various people and places. So, a risala is written on one of those 8 topics. One of those 8 topics, it's called risala. But if we collect all of them under one book, so we call this book musannaf, or we give it an alternative, jami'. It's a jami' or musannaf. We call it musannaf. Literally, the word musannaf means a compiled book, or a book which is compiled and arranged thematically. So musannaf is more comprehensive collection of ahadith in which the traditions, yes, the epistles or the risala came first, and afterwards the musannaf appeared. Or sometimes the musannaf, in some occasions the musannaf appeared before, but actually the first risala was actually written, as far as I guess, it was written before the musannaf. Are there examples those written by Imam Shafi'i and Ibn Abi Zayd? No, this is not risala, and it's a hadith term in hadith terminology, which means that the risala of Imam Shafi'i, it is called risala because it was like a message which he has written to Abdul Rahman ibn Mahdi to give him specific answers on certain questions that Ibn Mahdi raised to Imam Shafi'i. Such is the risala of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, risala ibn Abi Zayd al-Qayrawani, etc. So the risala that I'm talking to you is different because the risala includes only ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like, for example, the risala of Abu Dawood as-Sijistani to the people of Mecca. He sent for them a risala, a message, in which he compiled certain ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and he also provided them with details on his methodology on writing his sunan. You understand what I'm saying? So the risala like Sa'id ibn Abi Aruba, the risala of Sa'id ibn Abi Aruba, and so many other rasail like this. The musannaf is more comprehensive, and I would like to confirm for you that the musannaf appeared earlier, at the beginnings of the second Islamic century, at the end, at the second half of the first Islamic century, and even before this. Because Al-Imam al-Zuhri and Ma'mar ibn Rashid, those who lived actually in the second Islamic century, at the beginning of the second Islamic century, they were reported as writing books like similar to mini musannaf or small musannafs. But the most exhausted, the most comprehensive musannaf that we had access right now, and they made revolution in the science of ahadith, especially in the discourse between Muslims and the Western scholars, are two basic musannafs. There are two basic musannafs, and they are voluminous, and they include more than 30,000 ahadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The first one is the Musannaf of Abd al-Razzaq ibn Hammam al-San'ani, the Yemeni scholar. It's called Musannaf of Abd al-Razzaq al-San'ani. The Musannaf of Abd al-Razzaq al-San'ani is a huge and extensive compendium of hadith, which includes different reports reported from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from his Sahaba, and from the succeeding generations. It provides us with clear crystal views of the massive debates and the most extensive discourses on certain juristic issues which were circulated in the first and the second Islamic century. It provides us with consensus of the major Muslim scholars during the time of the Sahaba and the succeeding generations. Musannaf Abd al-Razzaq al-San'ani was prior to Imam al-Bukhari, and it was because Abd al-Razzaq al-San'ani, he died in 215 as far as I remember. And the second Musannaf, hugest Musannaf, which was available for the Ummah at that time, was the Musannaf of Abu Bakr Abdullah ibn Abi Shayba, which he is a scholar of Kufa, which represented huge materials also in almost 12 volumes or more than this. You can find in the Musannaf extensive topics, discourses on every single detail, reports from the Prophet ﷺ, from the Sahaba, from the succeeding generations, providing dalils. So it provides us with a clear, and Abu Bakr ibn Abi Shayba, he is a teacher of Bukhari and he is a teacher of Imam Muslim. You understand what I'm saying? These are the most, and the Musannaf also includes what you see, the book of Muwatta al-Imam Malik. Muwatta al-Imam Malik is a Musannaf book. So we have the Musannaf of Abd al-Razzaq al-San'ani, the Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba, the Muwatta of Imam Malik, the Sahih of Bukhari, and the Sahih of Imam Muslim. My brothers and sisters, there is a very important article which was written by one of the Western scholars by the name of Harald Motziki. Have you heard about this name? Harald Motziki. This Harald Motziki, I'm just typing this name in case for your reference, inshallah. His name is Harald. Harald Motziki, he wrote an extensive book on the Musannaf of Abd al-Razzaq al-San'ani, and also he wrote, he's a German, yes, he's a German scholar, and he had moderate views with regard to the Hadith anthology. I recommend you to read this, and if anybody has the opportunity right now to go to Google the name and the article, then the article is called the Musannaf of Abd al-Razzaq al-San'ani as an authentic source of hadith of the first Islamic or the second Islamic century. He conducted the source-critical approach of this, and he provided us with very illuminating elaboration of the Musannaf and its components and this stuff. The Musannaf of Ibn Abi Shayba has also discussed in my PhD, and it is available in printed by IPH, and it discusses actually the life of Ibn Abi Shayba and the definition, elaboration of the Ibn Abi Shayba as a prominent scholar, and a definition of his Musannaf, which is a very important book of hadith. Brother Salman is asking, do all these Musannaf and epistles have all chains? Yes, they have all chains of reporters. They have been supported through isnads, because the Ummah at the time, they only know even things which were reported from Sahaba and the succeeding generations. But some of them, they are authentic and some of them are not authentic. But so you need to verify if you would like to. Even the Sahifa, if the Sahifa is proved to be from a Sahabi, yes, it is authentic. But the problem rises here about the succeeding generations, about the authors or the reporters who received this Sahifa. We need to verify their authentication, and this is the reason that we have to do this. So basically, the Musannaf, if you would like to get he has many books. One of them is called Die Anfänge Islamische Jurisprudence, or Islamischen Jurisprudence, and this is in German, and then it was translated into English as The Origins of Islamic Jurisprudence in Meccan period. And the Musannaf of Abdul Razzaq this is an article. This is an article. I think I can, inshallah, if I have the opportunity. If you don't find it, I can share it with you, inshallah, on the website.
Sorry, Sheikh.
Anybody could, yes.
Are all the 6 major books of Hadith, are they all examples of Musannaf?
No, not all of them. Bukhari and Muslim is called Musannaf, and this, the answer of your question, inshallah, will come just within 2 or 3 slides right now. So it is the Musannaf of Abdul Razzaq or the Musannaf or the Jami' book. These are the books. Thank you, Uthman. So the Musannaf or the Sahih al-Bukhari, these are the books which are restricted to discuss those 8 topics that I mentioned to you. So if you read, for example, in Sahih al-Bukhari, my brothers and sisters, you will find a chapter on Iman. You will find a chapter on legal rulings. You will include a chapter on the commentary of the Quran. You will find a chapter on the military expeditions of the Prophet ﷺ, historical materials. All of them, they are for sure a hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The next compilation is Musnad. I'm going to come to Imam al-Bukhari. I put actually the Musnad here before the Jami'. Is the Musnad was actually authored or introduced immediately after the Musannaf. Immediately after the Musannaf. So the Musnad is a collection of ahadith which were arranged according to the names of original narrating authorities, irrespective of the subject matter. So if you open, for example, the Musnad of Al-Imam Ahmad, my brothers and sisters, Musnad al-Imam Ahmad is the hugest, is the most huge compilation of hadith which still exists on the whole globe. I'm sorry, with the exception of another Musnad which is still lost right now. Does anybody knows? Does anybody know? There is another Musnad which was written in the same methodology of Musnad al-Imam Ahmad through his student, and his student was, he lived in Al-Andalus, in Al-Andalus. This man, I will tell you a funny story about, or amazing story about his life. This man, he had 2 journeys. The man that who wrote another Musnad which is still missing. I'm telling you his story, and you are going to tell me his name, if you know his name, because he deserves actually to be known. This man, he took a pledge on himself that he will never ever collect the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ by going while wearing shoes. So he went barefooted. You know how long did he walk? Imagine. He left Al-Andalus, Spain, walked on his feet until he reached Baghdad, Iraq. On his foot, collecting the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ in 2 big journeys. The first journey costed him 20 years. The second journey costed him 15 years. he led his life for collecting the ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ. When he reached Imam Ahmad in Baghdad, he found that Imam Ahmad was suffering from the trial of Khalqul Quran, the creation of the Quran. You remember this story with the Mu'tazili al-Ma'mun and some of the Abbasid dynasty rulers. So Imam Ahmad Ibn al-Ghazali, no. Exactly, Brother Uthman got it. Brother Uthman got it. Barakallahu feek, ya Uthman. He got it. His name is Baqi ibn Makhlad, my brothers and sisters. Baqi ibn Makhlad, he got the hugest musnad in the whole world. But unfortunately, this musnad is still missing. The idea of the musnad, as I mentioned to you, is not as the jami' or the musannaf. Why? Because it does not sit the ahadith in thematic classification. He provides the hadith in anthologies. He groups the ahadith of Abu Huraira under the musnad of Abu Huraira, the ahadith of Aisha under the name Aisha. So he collects all the ahadith of Aisha all together. He collects all the ahadith of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq all together. And he arranged the names not alphabetically. Musnad al-Imam Ahmad, for example, he ordered them according to their merit and their virtue. So he starts with the four rightly guided. And then he gives the rest of those who were given the glad tidings of Jannah, the 10. And then the most prolific narrators of ahadith. And then the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, etc. So if you would like to get a hadith, a certain hadith from the Musnad al-Imam Ahmad, you don't have to look at the matn. What you are going to do, you have to look at the isnad. And so who is the Sahabi who reported this hadith specifically? So in this case, you can go and check this hadith. This is in case you don't have retrieval systems or search engines like Sheikh Google. Yes, Musnad al-Imam, Musnad Baqi ibn Makhlad is larger than the Musnad of Imam Ahmad. And some scholars said that the Baqi ibn Makhlad's Musnad is still exists in the West, but they did not actually discover it yet. And some of them said that it is lost. But anyhow, maybe there is a hope, inshallah, one day that we see with our own eyes the Musnad of Baqi ibn Makhlad. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on him. So the Musnad of Imam Ahmad is huge and extensive. I need to say a word about the Musnad, that the Musnad was later edited by Dar al-Risala, under the auspice of Sheikh al-Turk, and also this edition includes intensive commentaries by Sheikh Shu'aib al-Arnaut. And these extensive and intensive commentaries include even grading the hadith. So if you are not able to find the grading of hadith in Bukhari, in Muslim, and also you cannot find it in the 6 books that were actually edited by Imam al-Albani, Sheikh al-Albani, definitely you will find the judgment of Sheikh Shu'aib al-Arnaut on that certain hadith, because it has been edited in 50 volumes. This is the Musnad. And the most important Musnads, as I mentioned to you, is the Musnad of Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal. And before Imam Ahmad, we also have the Musnad of Abu Dawud al-Tayalisi, and also we have the Musnad of Ibn Abi Shayba. Ibn Abi Shayba was actually a contemporary of Imam Ahmad. Ibn Abi Shayba, the author of the Musannaf, he had also a Musnad work, and it is he was contemporary to Imam Ahmad, rahimahu Allah. Next is the Jami'. The Jami' appeared actually, as I mentioned to you, this is a collection containing traditions related to all I forget to tell. Okay, I will tell it later, inshallah. But anyhow, the Jami' is a hadith collection containing traditions related to all 8 topics listed above under the rubric Risala. Is the Musnad of Ishaq ibn Rahawayh sit in the same importance? Yes, but it is not that big. This is the reason that it doesn't have that significance, since it's not that big. Okay, as the Musnad of Imam Ahmad rahimahullah. The Sahih of Bukhari, as well as the principal book of Tirmizi, as known as Jami'. So again, an answer to the question which was raised, which one of the 6 ahadith, books of hadith is called Jami'? Is only Al-Imam al-Bukhari, Al-Imam Muslim. Number 3 is the Jami' of Al-Imam what? Of Al-Imam At-Tirmizi. These are only the 3 Jami', but the other books are called Sunan. So what is Sunan? Sunan doesn't actually cover the 8 topics that I mentioned to you before. Sunans are restricted only to the legal issues. It's related to the legal issues. You understand what I'm saying? So there is a difference between the Sunan and the Jami'. There is between the Sunan and the Jami'. Sunans are restricted to the legal issues. So you cannot find a chapter on Iman in the Sunan Abu Dawood. You cannot find a chapter on the commentary of the Quran, Sunan Abi Dawood. A very good question, which is, what is the difference between Jami' and Musannaf? Technically, there is no big difference between them, except in the volume. The volume of the Musannaf is bigger. We can say that each Jami' is called the Musannaf also. So in most cases, as far as I remember, that most of the scholars, they use them actually as synonyms. The Jami' of Imam al-Bukhari is called also Musannaf. Brother Salman is going, and he's dragging us actually to another issue, which is, what about the Tabari's Mu'jam? And also Brother Salman is Tabari's Mu'jam. I will talk about Tabari's Mu'jam. Let me explain it right now. If we say, you remember when I talked about the Musnad, let me return back to the Musnad here. I mentioned the word which you didn't pay attention. Some Musnad are arranged alphabetically. They are arranged alphabetically. You see here? Okay, so if it is arranged alphabetically, the names of the authorities are named alphabetically, arranged alphabetically. So we call it Mu'jam. We call it Mu'jam. Why? So the Mu'jam is arranged according to the names of narrators, right? It's not subject-wise. It's not thematic. But the Mu'jam, the only difference between the Mu'jam and the Musnad is that the Mu'jam is arranged, the names of those authors or narrators are arranged alphabetically from the word Mu'jam. The word Mu'jam literally means a lexicon. You see how a lexicon is arranged? It's arranged alphabetically. You understand what I'm saying? So it is the main difference between the Mu'jam and the Musnad is that the Mu'jam arranges the names alphabetically, but the Musnad arranges them according to the virtues, according to any consideration that the scholar says. The Mu'jam, we have 3 types of Mu'jam: Mu'jam al-Akbar, Mu'jam al-Awsat, and Mu'jam al-Asghar by Imam al-Tabarani. And there are Mu'jam al-Shamiyin also by Imam al-Tabarani. So Imam al-Tabarani, he used different methodologies in arranging his materials. He either arranged his materials according to his teachers. So when he arranged them alphabetically, he is actually mentioning the names of his teachers. So like, for example, the first teacher of Imam al-Tabarani is Muhammad ibn Ibrahim. So he collects all the hadith of Muhammad ibn Ibrahim under one topic, and then he goes to the next teacher and the next teacher. And in another Mu'jam of al-Tabarani, he arranges the names of Sahaba according to the highest authorities. Let us go back to the Jami'. Jami' is like Imam al-Bukhari and Muslim. The best book, or the most authentic book in all Jami's, is actually the Jami' al-Sahih of Imam al-Bukhari. The name of the book is Al-Jami' al-Sahih. Many people don't know that name. It's called Al-Jami' al-Sahih al-Musnad al-Mustakhraj min hadithi al-Mukhtasar min hadithi Rasulillah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam wa sunnatihi wa ayyamihi. Again, the full name of Al-Bukhari is Al-Jami' al-Sahih al-Musnad al-Mukhtasar min hadithi Rasulillah wa sunnatihi wa ayyamihi. Look at the methodology of Al-Bukhari is included in that title. Al-Jami' it signifies that it includes all the chapters of the Risala work. Okay, Al-Sahih, why it is called Al-Sahih? Because Al-Imam Al-Bukhari, he only picked up the authentic ahadith according to his own methodology that he drew down. So Al-Sahih signifies that only has the authentic ahadith. It's called also the Musnad. Why it's called Musnad? Musnad because signifies that all ahadith are connected with a sound chain of Isnad up to the level of the companion. So it's called Musnad in that way, in the sense that it's supported with a chain of transmission. Al-Imam al-Bukhari also said that min ahadith Rasulillahi wa sunnatihi. Why he said sunnatihi? Because it includes also ahadith on legal rulings, right? Wa ayyamihi, and his days. So because the Sahih al-Bukhari includes what? Why he added the word ayyamihi to the title? Because Imam al-Bukhari also included what? We can conclude. Because Imam al-Bukhari also included historical materials. Ayyamihi refers to the expeditions, the military expeditions, and the biographical materials of the Prophet ﷺ. How the idea came to Imam Bukhari, the occasion of authoring his work came when a man asked Ishaq ibn Rahawi, the teacher of Bukhari, to write a compendium on authentic Sunan. And the idea became stronger when Bukhari dreamt of himself standing before the Messenger ﷺ having a fan in his hand. So he wrote actually the book. Sahih al-Bukhari has only authentic ahadith. The book of Bukhari represents the last stage of hadith literature, and this was manifested in 3rd century compilation through works mainly of Bukhari and Imam Muslim. So the book of Bukhari is the most authoritative of all collections. It is reported that Imam al-Bukhari devoted more than 16 years of his time to the completion of this hadith. He spent long years in Mecca and Medina. He wrote on the candle, and sometimes he wrote on sight and on moonlight, close to the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, writing down his ahadith, going between Mecca and Bukhara, traveling long distances, spending all of his wealth. That's why the book was verified by pioneering scholars of his time, like Ahmad ibn Hanbal, Yahya ibn Ma'in, and Ali ibn al-Madini, and all of them provided a consensus on the authority and authenticity of his book. He interviewed 1,000 narrators out of 600 ahadith that he has collected. The number of ahadith of Bukhari, as you see in front of you, includes 9,082 ahadith, excluding with the repetitions, because as you know, the practice of Imam Bukhari is that he repeats hadith in different occasions and different titles. By excluding the repetitions, the exact number of hadith of Bukhari are the exact number is 2,602 hadith. The book is classified subject-wise. We will talk about Sahih al-Bukhari later when we talk about the conditions of the Sahih hadith and the conditions that Imam al-Bukhari has required in his book. But in just we give a bird's eye view about Sahih al-Bukhari. Another point, which is that Sahih al-Bukhari included also the mu'allaq ahadith. What are the mu'allaq ahadith in Bukhari? Sometimes al-Bukhari, not everything included in Bukhari meets his condition in the highest degrees of authenticity. Why? Because sometimes al-Bukhari, he liked to add a hadith to the titles that he wrote. So he chose to put some ahadith on those titles. But the ahadith included in the titles of Imam al-Bukhari, they do not have complete isnads. Why? Can anybody answer this? Imam al-Bukhari sometimes does not provide complete isnads only for the ahadith which are included in the titles. So you cannot quote a hadith which is included in the title and say, oh, this hadith, oh, okay, this is reported by Bukhari. No, you cannot say this. Why? Because it is not according to his conditions. It did not meet his criteria of strict authenticity. So that's right. So Imam al-Bukhari includes some mu'allaq. Why did he delete certain chains? He deleted only the parts which do not meet his conditions. Sometimes he provides a name or two names of the isnad, three names only. He sometimes provide no names, just the name of the sahabi or the hadith directly. Why? Because he does not, the chain of transmission does not meet his conditions. Finally is the Sunan compilation. This is basically about the Jama' and some examples of Jama'. But as I mentioned to you, we will refer to Imam Bukhari again when we talk about the Sahih Hadith. And you can review actually this in the materials that I mentioned in the PowerPoint. The Sunan collections contain a hadith related to ahkam, legal liturgical traditions, and omit materials related to historical, spiritual, and other matters. An example of the Sunan is the Sunan of Abu Dawud, Sunan al-Nasa'i, and Sunan al-Imam al-Tirmidhi. No, Sunan al-Tirmidhi is called what? It is classified as Sunan or another type? You remember?
Jami'.
It is Jami', exactly. So, because Imam al-Tirmidhi's book, it includes the 8 topics that we talked about with regard to al-Risala. Okay? Remain for us 2 terms that I want actually you to know. The first term is the Mustadrak and the Mustakhraj. The scholars also wrote their books and some of them, they called them Mustakhraj or Mustadrak. What is Mustadrak? Mustadrak is basically a book which is written by a scholar of Hadith. This scholar of Hadith, he chooses a book, like for example, Imam Bukhari's book. And he accepts to apply the conditions of Bukhari. And he says, he claims that Imam Bukhari put conditions, requirements for certain ahadith. But I found out that there are many ahadith which were not included by Bukhari, but they are in compatibility with his conditions and they fulfill his conditions. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to compile a hadith which were left by Imam Bukhari, though they fulfilled and applied all of his methodology. So we have a Mustadrak al-Hakim by al-Naysaburi. Mustadrak al-Imam al-Hakim by al-Naysaburi. He assembled the large number of hadiths which fulfill the stringent conditions laid down by Imam Bukhari. But I need to pay your attention that the Mustadrak of al-Imam al-Hakim al-Naysaburi did not reach that consensus like Imam Bukhari, but the massive majority of Muslim scholars, they said that his ahadith are not incompatible, not consistent with the conditions of Imam Bukhari, which were very strict. So basically, the Mustadrak of al-Imam al-Hakim al-Naysaburi has been commented by al-Imam al-Zahabi. Imam al-Zahabi, he wrote a book on the Mustadrak, and that's why you cannot reach a conclusion whether this hadith is authentic as long as it is mentioned in Mustadrak, but you have to check other sources actually to verify for you. Another type of compilations is called Mustakhraj. It's called what? It's called Mustakhraj. What is Mustakhraj? Mustakhraj is the type of a work on hadith which collects same ahadith, like same ahadith in Bukhari, same ahadith in Muslim, but through additional isnads. So through different paths of transmission, not the ones that were acquired by Imam al-Bukhari. So he goes to the far teacher, to the third or second teacher of Imam Bukhari, and he gets the hadith through his own path of transmission. What is the benefit of the mustakhraj? The mustakhraj provides us with numerous variants of the same hadith in terms of its textual analysis. It provides us also with confirmation of that hadith through different paths of transmission to give us idea that the hadith was also circulated among scholars of hadith at earlier stages of worship. Sahih. Finally, my brothers, the scholars wrote about arba'iniyat. They collect 40 ahadith only in a compilation, and they call, like, for example, the 40 ahadith of Imam al-Nawawi. And mostly those arba'iniyat, it is based on a weak hadith, which says that if a person memorizes 40 ahadith of mine, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make hellfire haram on him. But anyhow, this has been, it was a tradition among many scholars of making arba'iniyat on manners and behavior, arba'iniyat of Imam al-Nawawi, and arba'in al-Qudsiyya, etc. So this is briefly, my brothers and sisters, what I wanted to share with you regarding this session about the anthologies of hadith. I know we turned late. If you please have any question or any queries, don't hesitate, inshallah, raising them. Barakallahu feekum. There is a question from Prumi Razak, which says, didn't meet the criteria, his criteria of strict authenticity. You mean Al-Imam Al-Hakim al-Naysaburi in his book about the Mustadrak? Yes, he did not actually meet the Al-Hakim al-Naysaburi. He claimed that he met the conditions of Bukhari, but he did not. Another question from Hidayah, with regards to the Musnad Baqi being the biggest collection, how and why did it get lost? When and what was the last that we have heard of it? This is actually something that you can elaborate in your term paper, inshallah, if you are interested in this topic. But it has the manuscript, meaning that the manuscripts of this Musnad has been lost. Many of the Muslims' books were lost because they were extant in manuscript format. So these manuscripts during war times, like for example the invasion of the Spanish troops by Isabella and Ferdinando to Spain, led to demolishing a lot of Muslim resources. The Tatar, when they invaded Baghdad, and later on at times of war, and in the colonization of the Muslim world, many of those manuscripts have been brought by the Western scholars and Western troops to the West. Unfortunately, to tell you that massive majority of the Muslim manuscripts are now exist now in Berlin Bibliothek and also the French Bibliotheca and many other libraries of the world. This is the reason that we could not find the manuscript of Baqi ibn Makhlad, but we found the scholars talking about it in their books. Wallahu a'la wa a'lam. Okay. So see you, inshallah, my brothers and sisters, next week. Barakallahu feekum. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shower His mercy and tranquility upon all of you. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
جزاك الله خيرا شيخنا. وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
وإياكم بارك الله. السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام.